Okay, welcome back everyone. So I'm going to be talking to you now about how to identify opportunities for your personal learning and development throughout your registrar years. So what I'm going to talk about is just a brief introduction to development, where you can find opportunities for development, both in your clinical work and some non-clinical aspects. And then I'll summarize at the end and can answer any questions. So this slide always makes me laugh, so I'll just open everything up. So I think a lot of you are probably seeing your role as an SHO, kind of this picture at the bottom, being in the depths of hell on the postnatal ward, and consultant life is what we're looking forward to, which is, looks like almost like a dream life, and the registrar position is somewhere kind of the glue in the middle between these two aspects of your career. And what you'll be finding, I think we've covered so far in the course, is that you're going to be moving more from service provision and exams and focusing on those things to when you become a consultant, you'll have more managerial responsibilities, you'll be much more hands-off, and you'll have the oversight of all your patients. So when you're a registrar, you'll be sort of in the middle of this, so you're becoming more independent, more hands-on, and hopefully a lot of the things you've learned from your exams and in your SHO years will start to make more sense, as you are the one seeing the patients and making those decisions. So learning and development, what it should be really is a blend of things you should do and things that you want to do. And hopefully, like we've just said, once you become a registrar, you're not trying to learn and keep up to date with things just for the sake of exams. You're going to be learning for yourself, your personal development, and to make you a better registrar. So I think it's important to kind of decide the way you want to go about the next few years of your training. So you could either carry on as you are, if an opportunity comes to you, then take it, or you could just take control and actively seek out opportunities and things for your personal development and take control of your future. So I think now you guys are moving towards ST4, it's really important to now think about your career and what you want to do. So you have to think about what you want from your career and how you're going to get there and what things you need to do to achieve your goals. And so the best way to do that is to identify learning opportunities. So in your clinical work, you're going to be surrounded by learning opportunities all the time. You just have to know what to look out for, and you just have to see it that way. So with your development, you'll be given tasks day to day in your clinical practice that kind of fall into one of these 4 categories. So something that would be high urgency and high impact, one example would be an emergency crash call. So that's something that must be done immediately and is very important. Something that could be high urgency but low impact could be something like a TTA or discharge summary that you're getting bugged to do by the nurses, which is urgent but maybe has a low impact. A good example of something that's probably low urgency and low impact would be something like Kaizen and keeping your portfolio up to date. It's important, but again, not urgent. And I think personal development falls into the final category. So it's not urgent, but once you do it, it makes a huge impact on your career and your future life as a consultant. So these are just some examples of learning and development within your clinical work. So I think first thing is really important is face-to-face courses. Unfortunately, we've lost out in the last couple of years with not many face-to-face courses running. Now we're sort of over the hump of the pandemic, things are getting better and a lot more courses are moving to face-to-face. Some of the RSM days later in the year are going to be face-to-face. I think the leadership and management evenings are now face-to-face. So I think those are really important to attend if you can. There's a lot of online teaching available. Hopefully you'll have local teaching, but also regional teaching. So London School of Paediatrics are still organising monthly teaching sessions that are held virtually on GoToMeet. every Tuesday. So that's important to attend if you can. And as you've probably noticed, a lot of courses now are moving towards being virtual, and a lot of them are free. So you just have to kind of keep an eye out for any useful, interesting courses that you may want to attend. In terms of study leave courses, you probably all know there's 3 categories. You've got your mandatory, optional, and aspirational. So of course, for your personal development, it's important to keep track of your mandatory courses, so your NLS, APLS, and level 3 safeguarding, making sure they're all up to date. I know it's been tricky again the last couple of years, but there are more courses now available. Optional courses would be the London School of Paediatrics Regional Study Days. I think it's a common misconception that we hear sometimes is that within paediatrics we don't have regional teaching, but this actually is our regional teaching. They're available every month, every other month with a theme, and they're hosted by RSM. So those are really important to attend if you can, and your trust should facilitate you attending those. Child bereavement courses are now should be running again, so those are also optional but highly recommended. And then aspirational courses are important to do. Are there anything that's not on the long list of courses, which I've got on the next slide? But some examples of things you could attend would be a cranial ultrasound course. There's quite a few available for that. Echocardiography courses, if you're interested in picking that up as a skill. There's a really good one in Brighton that runs over a few days. Things like NeoSave, or the NTS team run a simulation day. I think it's called the NETS course, and that's really good as well. And then ARNI is Advanced Neonatal Resuscitation, and quite a few trusts run that as well, if you're interested. Keeping up to date with guidelines is important, so you should try to read your local guidelines if you can. But there's also a lot of regional guidelines available to you, so NTS, CATS, South Thames Retrieval Service, they all have really excellent guidelines on their website for quite a few conditions. So keeping up to date with them. And of course, trying to read your textbooks and your journals and your archives that comes every month. For people that are keen, you could do a master's, or if you don't want to commit to a full master's, there's always modules and short courses available as part of master's programs. Or you could shorten it and do a postgraduate diploma or a postgraduate certificate. So there's a few in clinical pediatrics. If you're interested in neonates, Southampton have a neonatal master's degree now as well, which is virtual, I think. And then in terms of clinical work, trying to keep up to date with your workplace-based assessments is important. I know it can be difficult in some places as a registrar to get it. You just have to nag your consultants for them. If you've got a week coming up, clinical and then ITU or on the ward, just ask your consultants in advance if they can, at the end of the week, if you can do any assessments with them. Reflections are important. If you have an interesting case that you learned something from, you did some reading around, put that on your portfolio, reflect on it, do some reading around it. The RCPCH progress curriculum is, I know most people probably don't look at it until their ARCP time is coming, but it is quite important to look at it early in the job. Then you can identify any domains that maybe you think might be tricky to get. Most of it you'll get from your clinical work. For certain domains, you do have to kind of look out for opportunities. For example, in level 3, under safeguarding, there's writing a police report and a few very specialist things that, unless you actually seek out something to fulfill that criteria, you're not going to just get it day to day. So important to flick through that when you move to level 2. So this is the study leave, which courses are optional and mandatory. So just have a skim through this. You might see some courses that interest you that you can sign up for. And anything not on this course is aspirational. It's a bit of a faff to get aspirational study leave, but it's worth it in the end. They allowed me to go abroad for a course for a few days to Italy, which was amazing. So you just have to go through all the steps and get it all signed off, but it can be worth it. Moving on to non-clinical skills. So I've kind of broadened, summarized these broadly into 3 categories. So you've got your teaching, management and leadership, and then your quality improvement research. So teaching, keeping on top of teaching, trying to get involved in teaching and education. I think now you're moving towards your registrar years is really, really important. You can just do this day-to-day on the wards. So if you've got medical students coming, you can do teaching sessions with them, bedside sessions. Now you're going to be registrars, you'll have SHOs with you. So trying to teach them as much as you can is really important on the ward round. After you see an interesting case in A&E, or just showing them how to do a procedure. If you have journal club at your hospital, it's important to get involved with that. If you don't have journal club, you can always set it up. Or if you've got any grand rounds or M&M meetings, trying to teach on those is really useful. And getting involved with regional teaching is really good for your personal development, also quite good for your CV, especially if you do want to go into a subspecialty later in your training. Ways you can get involved with that, some examples could be, there's a North West London MRCPCH clinicals teaching course, like teaching program. I think it used to be called Ripple, but helping with that, helping with the RSM study days, the LSP study days. Anyone can sign up to organise a study day. So if there's a theme you're interested in, you just have to email a couple of consultants. Their names are on the LSP website. So you just contact them, say I'm interested in organising the, renal study day or infectious diseases study day. And if they've got capacity, they'll put your name down for the next one. And if you organise a whole study day, that will count as regional teaching. There's also a simulation faculty development programme for ST6+ that's organised by London School of Paediatrics. I've known some people get involved with university lecturing as well. Or you could always set up, as I mentioned earlier, you could always set up a new teaching programme for your department. So journal club, if you don't have it already, is a good one to do. Teaching courses to attend. So Teach the Teacher, this is a 2-day course where it teaches doctors how to teach other doctors. But that's quite a good thing to have on your CV. The generic instructor course is brilliant. If any of you are passionate about teaching or becoming an instructor, interested in becoming an instructor, I'd recommend doing this. You can only get onto it if you're nominated as having instructor potential and on one of these courses. So if you attend NLS or APLS at some point in the next year or two, you're now a registrar, so you probably will have the skills to get nominated. You just have to show passion for what you're doing, and you have to express your interest. So if you do want to do this, then just when you go on one of these courses, just make it quite clear to your faculty that you're interested in becoming an instructor, and just show lots of passion on the course, and then hopefully you should get nominated. And then once you are nominated, you attend a generic instructor course, which is a 2-day course. And then after that, you'll become an instructor candidate, and you have to teach on 2 courses to become a full instructor. Sounds like a bit of a faff, but it's very useful, and it's a really good course. With teaching skills that you learn from that, you can apply to other things as well. So I'd highly recommend that. And then if you're very keen on medical education, you could do a PG Cert in medical education or a postgraduate diploma. Quite a few universities offer that. And I think the PG Cert is a 1-year distance course with some modules. So if you're keen, that's something else you could do. So moving on to leadership. So I think this is one of the hardest things about becoming a registrar is it'll be your first time supervising, your first time in charge. You may never have had someone junior to you before. And I think what I found challenging to start off with was trying to figure out how hands-off do I want to be? How much do I delegate to my SHO or my F1 or my F2? This is something you'll learn as you start working. You'll figure out what works for you. But that can be quite tricky, learning to delegate and realize that it's not all on you. You don't have to do all the jobs. As a registrar, you need to have some oversight. And so use your team and delegate things to your colleagues. Supporting others will extend your own practice. So teaching an SHO a procedure like a lumbar puncture can be really rewarding, especially when you show them and then you see them develop and then start to do it independently by the end of the week or the end of the month. That can be really rewarding. And also even supervising your SHO, maybe supervising the F1 on the ward to do a cannula or to do a lumbar puncture. That can be really helpful. And then you'll get feedback on how you taught them, and then you'll see them teaching someone else using the skills that you taught them. So that can be really rewarding. It's really important to motivate your team, not just the SHOs and nurses. You'll often have, now your registrar, you'll have registrar ward round days. So just keeping everyone motivated and interested is just more fun for the ward team. So doing teaching on the ward round, I find that it keeps people interested. So for each patient you see, try and do some teaching, get the SHO involved. I would recommend not getting them to write every single time because it can be really boring for them, as I'm sure you already know. So getting them involved to examine the patient or maybe lead that consultation, and then you can offer them assessments. That just keeps the morale up during the course of the day. Pizza's there, you could always offer food. That can never go wrong. And there is opportunity for you guys to become mentors. So the London School of Paediatrics have the Paediatric Families Project. You may have been involved in that as ST1s. I'm not sure if it was running that a couple of years back, but you can mentor someone in ST1 joining at your hospital. And so you can just be their support system, someone that they can ask for help or come to if they're struggling. And that's something I would recommend doing. So you just email that email address and say that you're interested, and they can put you in for your next placement. It's really important to remember that, I think we've touched on this throughout the course, is that you are still part of a team. It's not all on you. You don't have to make all the decisions. Please ask for help. And even as a leader, you need to ask your team for advice. So even something as extreme as, say, a resuscitation scenario, I've had times where I've stopped and asked my whole team, okay, is there anything else that I've not done that we've missed? You know, give me your feedback. So, and that's not just from above and below, but auxiliary staff as well, so the nurses, healthcare assistants, the midwives. Ask everybody around you for help. Don't be afraid. And I think this last point is quite important. So you may have a registrar or a consultant or someone senior to you that you look up to. I certainly had a registrar that sticks out in my head from when I was ST1. He was absolutely fantastic. And when I became a registrar, I tried to think, okay, what was his approach in this sort of situation? How did he do things? How did he cope in stressful situations? And I think trying to model yourself after someone you admire or someone you have seen do something really effectively can be really helpful. If you're ever stuck, you can just think, okay, how would that person manage this? What's the best thing to do? Moving on to projects. So this will cover sort of QI, audits, research. So audit is something we all have had to do every single year. I think now what you should try to do, rather than just doing an audit just to tick things off or just getting one that's been given to you, try to do an audit in something that you're interested in, something that you're passionate about. And if you can close the loop, that will be better. So if you can close the loop and show that you've made a change, or maybe a change in service provision, change in your guidelines as a result of your audit, that can be really, really powerful. So my advice would be to find audits that mean something to you, that you're passionate about. And if you can, go back and close the loop. Again, that sounds like a bit of a faff, but it is worth it. I've done that with 1 or 2 audits. I've gone back to the hospital and re-audited it after a year. And you might find that actually the recommendations you made from your first audit have made a huge difference. And now there's a big improvement. or you might find that nothing has changed and then you implement something to make some improvements. So that would be my recommendation, is do an audit you're interested in. Quality improvement projects, those are really great to set up. Again, do something that you're interested in. If, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I found it a bit confusing. What's the difference between QI and audit? There are really good courses that kind of go over that for you. So QIC Learn is one website. It's got really great resources. Another one is Quality Improvement in Healthcare, Making the Case for Change is the name of it, I think. And this is run by the University of Bath on Future Learn. So it's all online. It's meant to be a 6-week course, but you can do it in your own time. You don't have to do it in 6 weeks. So I kind of spread it out. But that was really useful for me. Guidelines, get involved with guideline revisions, making a new guideline in your hospital. If you see that there's no guideline for something, offer to make one. That can be really great for your CV and for your own learning as well. And then research. So research is easier than most people think to get involved with in some small way. So LSP runs some research evenings, you could attend those. The National Institute of Health and Research, NIHR, they have courses that you can do that teach you how to consent. My mind stopped now. There's a, what's it called? Emma, can you remember the name of the course that you have to do? GCP, sorry, I've just remembered now. GCP training, good clinical practice, that's another one you can do. And if you've got that valid, you can help within your hospital to recruit for trials if there's any studies going on. You can become a research champion for your local hospital. So there's lots of things you can do within your hospital to get involved with research. It doesn't have to be an actual research study. Doing posters, publications. So if you see any interesting cases or you do a really effective audit or quality improvement project, submit them. It's really easy to just do the project and then put it aside, but to have something to show for it, I think is quite important. So audits, quite easy to get posters for audits and QIP projects. And yeah, publication case reports is quite a good one to do. So if you see an interesting case on the ward, remember to get consent from the parent. I use a BMJ consent form. If you get that signed, once a patient's discharged, you can write up the case report afterwards, and then you just have to send it to the parent at a later date. But just try and think, okay, is this something unique? Is there something different about this case that we can learn something from? If you identify that, get the consent, ask your consultant. I'm sure they'll support you. And then BMJ case reports is quite a good place to publish. Or archives, they have the, they don't publish full case reports anymore, but they have images in pediatrics or images in neonatal medicine. And that was where I had my first publication. It's just a short 250-word summary with some interesting pictures. So if you have any patients with really unique x-rays or something a bit different that the pediatric community can learn from, just keep it in your head and remember to get consent. So that's a good way of getting publication. But obviously you can always write a letter or submit a QI project or something. And Paediatric FOMED is another great place to get some things written up. So they're always looking for volunteers. You've probably seen this slide before in our intro. It's a really great slide. So I think management stumps most people in how to kind of get started and get involved with that. And so there's 3 tiers of levels that you can get involved with management. So locally, an obvious one is rota coordinator. I think it's something everyone should do once at some point during their training. You learn a lot about rota structure, and especially now with more people moving towards less than full time, I think it's a good thing to learn. And often when you become a junior consultant, that job will get put on you anyway. So having some experience with it, I think in training is a good thing. We've talked about journal club already. Setting up a journal club is great. Organising your teaching rota for your hospital, becoming a simulation lead maybe, or you could organise, I don't know, monthly sim sessions or if that isn't already implemented in your hospital. Social secretary is always needed. And I think key thing is you could always create your own role. If there's something you see a gap in that interests you, just ask your consultants if you could take up this role in your department. In terms of regional management, becoming a trust rep for your hospital is a good way to start. So that way you can attend the LSP meetings. You can give feedback on your trust and how things are working, how the rota is working, and then get some advice from the wider community and go back to your trust with any improvement points. We've already talked about the leadership and management evenings run by LSP. So those have started up again. You'll find the dates for those on the website. There are lots of regional courses available. There are some national courses available. I think ISC Medical, they run a management course that's meant to be quite good for registrars. The LSP trainee committee is another thing you could join. So me and Emma are members of the LSP. So we take new people every other year. You have to apply, fill in an application form. But if you're passionate about getting involved with one of the branches that we have, so we have IT, we have education, well-being, and a few others, then apply. That's a really good way of getting some management on your CV. And then there are things like Darcy fellowships, which are sort of leadership and management fellowships that are always available that you could apply to. On a national level, the RCPCH have a trainees committee as well. And if you have a special interest, you could apply to that society to be a committee member. So PEDSIG or BAPM. BAPM have committee members if you're interested in neonates. There's quite a few things you can do. Another thing you could do locally, which I did, was get involved with your perinatal like mortality review process, the PMRT team. So you could maybe attend all those meetings, and so I did that. I found that really helpful. So you get to see how each case is managed and the review process. So that's another thing you can do. Moving on to UPs. So UPs are great if you have something you're interested in for your personal development. You don't quite have the time to do it whilst you're in training. So I think I would recommend doing these if there's anything you're interested in. So I took an UP between my SD4 and SD5 year to finish off a master's, which I'm really glad I did, because doing that full time would have been impossible. But there's loads of interesting things you could do. So there's, if you're interested in global health, this picture's from Global Links, if you've heard of that. So that's on the RCPCH website. If you search Global Links, you go to low and middle income countries, and you go there to teach the local staff. You can teach LLS, APLS, you could set up quality improvement programs, you could create projects. It's kind of up to you what you'd like to do in that particular area. There's a few countries to choose from. I think Rwanda, Uganda were on the list. I'm not sure if they've changed that in the last couple of years, but I know a number of people who've done it. So you can do it for either 6 months or 12 months. Most people I know have gone for 6 months abroad, and they've all absolutely loved it and they really recommend it. So there's lots of information on their website if you're interested in doing that. Another thing, if you're interested in global health, is the diploma of tropical health and medicine from what's the name of the university? My brain stopped. London School of Health, Tropical Medicine. That's it, yes. So they have a diploma that you could do. And then you've got Medicine Sans Frontières run a lot of things if you're interested in global health as well. So there's quite a lot within global health that you could get involved with. Then there's plenty of teaching fellowships available, or sim fellowships or research fellowships. You just have to kind of look for them. If there's a particular hospital you want to work in, you could just email the consultants there and ask if anything's available. Or sometimes these posts are advertised on the NHS employers website. So you just have to have a look And then once you've got something in mind, you just have to make sure you apply for your EP with enough time, and you have something set up. It doesn't all need to be completely set up and funded. You just have to have something set up before you go to the panel, and they need 6 months notice. So try to think early on, what kind of thing would you like to do and when you'd like to do it in your training. And yeah, working abroad, some people go abroad. I know someone who went to Australia to do neonatal transport medicine on helicopters for a year, and she really enjoyed that. So there's lots of things you could do abroad as well. You just have to make sure you apply with 6 months notice, and make sure you get all your paperwork in, because I forgot mine until the night before, so don't do that. One of the last things, so having a life outside medicine, it's really important to take some time to do things that you like, so that you're not feeling burnt out, bogged down with all these things that you might have to do for your personal development. So try to think of things, anything you did before medical school, what kind of things do you do now? Have things dropped off, which I'm sure they have for most people, and try and think of something that you might want to start doing again. This is quite useful. So this is not just for people who want to apply for GRID. So if you want to apply for GRID, this is kind of the categories they look at on their mark sheet. That mark sheet was available on their website under downloads. I just looked yesterday and they've seemed to have deleted it. I'm sure they'll put it back up soon. If anyone wants it, I can email it to you, so just contact me. But I think this is quite useful even for people that don't want to do GRID. It just gives you a nice overview and tick box of ideas and things that they expect from people applying for subspecialty. But you could try and achieve those things even if you don't want to do subspecialty. And this actually really helped me identify gaps in my personal development. So for example, I really did not have much in terms of management until the last couple of years. And that was a big gap on my CV. So this whole form is a PDF document, has tons and tons of things that you could do. And it's not just for people who want to do GRID. So yeah, so as of yesterday, it wasn't on the website. If anyone wants it, I have it on my laptop, so I can email it to you. This is really important, and I'm guilty of this. So please don't try to do too much. So all these things I've talked about, don't think you have to do every single thing that I've mentioned. If something gets offered to you, if you're interested in it and you have time for it, then of course say yes, but don't just feel like you have to say yes to everything that comes your way. Because what you will find, and this happened to me, and I'm getting a bit better at it now, is that you end up stretching yourself so thin and it just wears you out. So it's better to do a few things that really mean something to you, that you can put your time into and do well, than try to do 100 different things, you know, not as well and not in as much depth, or things you're not passionate about, you don't get any pleasure out of. So I think just sit down and think, what kind of things are really important for you to do? What things are you passionate about? Are you passionate about education? You're passionate about a particular topic, research, and just try and narrow things down. So if you start trying to do, say, one big thing a year, so maybe this year you're going to do a quality improvement project, focus on that. Next year you're going to apply for LSP Trainees Committee, focus on that. So just try and pace yourself. So have a list of ideas of things maybe from this talk that you think you'd be interested in doing, but just pace yourself and try not to do too many things at once. And I think this final point is really important. I think in your ST4 year, focus on being an ST4. It is stressful enough being a new registrar. You don't want to have 50 million other things that you need to do. You've got time. So just relax, enjoy being a registrar, and just focus on your clinical work. I think that should be the main priority. Once you feel you have a handle on things, then of course, you know, you can do other things that you're interested in. But I'd say, especially in the first few months, just focus on the job and enjoy it. So a few final points. So yes, it's kind of what we've already mentioned. So just look into the future and think, what do you want to do with your career? Is there a specialty you're interested in? Is there something you're passionate about, like education or sim or, you know, something else? and just sit down and consider your interests before you take on any activities. Talk to people, so talk to senior registrars, consultants, ask people for advice. If you're interested in grid, ask people that have done grid. I'm happy to be emailed if anyone's got any, so I'm a neonatal grid trainee, I didn't mention that at the beginning. So if anyone wants any advice, I'm happy to give advice on that. So just ask people, they'll have really valuable advice for you. Look at the grid application process and the shortlisting criteria. And like I said, even if you don't want to do grid, there's some really good points in there of things that you could do. That also would be looked at for when you're applying for consultant jobs. So that's a good thing to look at. And I can email that to you if you can't find it on the website. If you do want to do an OP, very important, plan in advance. As I said, think about it well in advance, because you have to have your application in 6 months before, with all the forms signed by your supervisor. So try to start thinking now if there is anything you want to do in your time off. And really important to try and maintain some sort of balance in your life. So have a personal life, have hobbies outside of medicine. And so I'll just finish there. So yeah, so just, I think we've kind of said all this already. So just think about what direction you want to go in. Do you have a special interest? If you have a special interest, make sure you look at the grid form early on. Seek out learning opportunities that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, and that will lead you in the direction you want to go in. And talk to all the people that are doing the things you want to do. Make sure you're a well-balanced person. And I think most importantly for your ST4 year, just enjoy yourself, relax, and settle into it. And this final link here is a really good video on opportunities in paediatrics. So that kind of covers some of what we've talked about. So I would recommend watching that. Any questions? I see lots of things in the chat.
Yeah, they were just additional points.
Yes, okay, let me just scroll through and see.
There shouldn't be any questions that are unanswered.
Oh, fine. Great. Okay, yes. Yeah, Teach the Teacher is also called Train the Trainer, correct? And yes, ISC Medical, they do loads of courses, actually. I did their leadership and management one, and it was very good. Yeah, Peds Education Fellow. Sam said it's been difficult to get onto recertification courses. This is true. We've been discussing this, actually, haven't we, in our LSP group, so that the TPDs are aware that people are having problems. I think if you're struggling to get onto one by the time of your ARCP, just make sure your educational supervisor writes that you've tried. And I think they've said just upload emails that you've tried to book onto one. I think if you show that you've tried to book onto one, then yes, my understanding is it'll be fine.
No, that's absolutely true. So long as you can provide evidence that you are either confirmed on a course or have tried multiple different courses, that's enough. But make sure it's obvious on your portfolio, because at the end of the day, they're going through everyone's portfolio, particularly at summer ARCP, and they really don't have time to try and make it easy for them, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a question at the bottom.
Let me have a look. Just scroll through. Oh yeah, Nina's made a great point. So teach procedures to your trainees early so you don't get bogged down doing them. Very true. Let me see. Any good courses or ways to develop non-technical leadership skills? I think the ISC medical one comes to mind, because that's a non-technical leadership and management course. So I don't even think that course that sometimes doesn't even have medical people on it. It's just generally about how to manage a team. So that would be a good one to attend.
Also you've just attended as well, which is this course.
Yes, very true. Any tips for ST4 regis moving ahead for spin when we are changing to level progress curriculum?
So the curriculum is changing because of the restructuring that's going to go ahead. In terms of spin, everything's on the RCPCH website, similar to that of grid, and it gives you, if you like, your key capabilities that you need as a list in order to be able to get that signed off. actually the form for spin is really easy. There's no word limit for any of the things, whereas there is on grid applications. And they're very much kind of standard questions, like why do you want to do it? What things do you want to get out of it and why, and where you're going? Is there anything specific that doesn't meet your needs, or that what service provision do they need to try and help in order to make you get your spin? When you're doing your ST6 plus matching, it's very, you have to state whether you're applying for grid or whether you're applying for spin, and they will try and put you in accordingly. What I would say though is that as an ST4, try and that's part of the point that I was making, make a CV, try and work out where your big gaps are, because then it's very obvious to try and work out which bits you need to spend more time on in terms of trying to bulk them out, and which areas actually you're doing pretty well in, and so you need less. And there are courses that will help. There are things that are slightly more unusual in terms of courses that are out there specifically designed to try and just tailor it and think about it early, because that's really helpful. The leadership and management course for ICS I have done. I actually did the online version of it, but I did.
So did I.
Face-to-face train the trainer. I would do it that way round if that's your option. My one was paid for as per the study leave budget for both of them, so that was quite good. And actually it talks you through the different models of leadership and the different ways in which people learn, and it was a very good general overview that wasn't specific to medicine in quite the same way that others are. And I quite liked that, because it meant that hopefully I'm better in outside work as well as inside work. But there were loads of transferable skills, and I found it very useful.